today. It is June 11th of 2024, and the Kurds should have had their elections. But between Turkey and pressure from the U.S., they've decided to postpone them until August. And so what would this do for Turkey? This would then open up a potential invasion, as we've talked about, into Iraq and Syria, mainly emphasis of Syria, so that they can go down and help the Palestinian people in Rafah and that area in Gaza around Palestine. And that is Erdogan's main goal. But a lot has happened in the last week since I've posted, and I'm not posting every day because I don't think it's necessary. You know the basic premise of the concept that this is a history lesson that's going to play out in the future. And so Erdogan now has an opening to go against the Israel, which is attacking the Palestinian people, to help them. And now we have Turkey through Erdogan indicating that Israel would attack Turkey and occupy them in some regard. So this is starting to turn, and I believe that we need to see the working parts of this and why this is going to play out the way I keep telling you it will. It's a history lesson getting ready to play out in the future. So I want to bring a number of stories to your attention so you can get a feel for what is really happening out here. And very few people are talking about any of this. They have their eye on Rafah or Ukraine or other, Taiwan, whatever. This is going to be the one catalyst that's really going to bring the Middle East into destruction in the next year. And so we need to follow these elements, and how Turkey is literally going to change everything in the Middle East within days or weeks, guys. I've been trying to explain this for some time. So in the Times of Israel, on June 11th, this is today. Actually, the article was on June 3rd. Here, we're in June 11th now, so like I say, I'm behind about a week. Shin Bet, which is a, if you come down in here, it talks about, this is a security agency that works within Israel, says that they foiled Hamas suicide bombing plot directed from Turkey. Okay, not from Iran, not from Hamas, not from Hezbollah, not from the Houthis or any other group, from Turkey. Okay, so Turkey's starting to plot against Israel. They're starting to send in people to basically blow up things in Israel through these different organizations and different things like that. But this one has been radiating back to Turkey and how they have a massive involvement in this. And they've arrested 6 Palestinians, 5 from this area, and we're going to carry out this attack of a 12-kilogram bomb manufactured in West Bank. It talks about how they foiled it and different things like that. I'm not going to go into a lot of the details of this because it really doesn't matter, other than that they have brought this into Turkey's court. And if you go and look at what Turkey's been saying here lately, Erdogan is very concerned about his situation with Israel. So in this article, it talks about, and this was on June 10th, like I say, I'm not going deep into these articles. It talks about how Erdogan, or why Erdogan thinks Israel wants to conquer Turkey, and how recently Turkey and Erdogan has repeatedly accused Israel of plotting a post-Gaza takeover of Turkish heartland while praising Hamas. And so you need to understand that Erdogan, and I've talked about this many times, his first goal is not the Kurds. He's going to come back and deal with the Kurds. This has opened up a path to where he doesn't have to deal with the Kurds, except maybe that first initial invasion where he has to push them towards the east, towards Erbil. But that's not his goal. His goal is to go down through Lebanon. He may go through Syria to Tyre, Lebanon. I'm not sure exactly how that path is going to transpire, but he's going to go to Tyre, Lebanon. He's going to end up in Gaza. He's going to help those Palestinians. And if you look at the maps, you realize for him to get to Gaza, he literally has to go down through Syria to Lebanon, through part of Israel, between Israel and Jordan, to Gaza, which is going to cause all kinds of problems over in the Middle East as he's driving a massive army through this hole. Okay, so he's concerned that if they don't eliminate, and this is what Netanyahu's been trying to get at. The Muslim communities are going to wipe Israel off the map. It's just that simple. They'll genocide them to the point they don't exist. And possibly, I've talked about this, and I don't know if this is my speculation, that Biden might allow Israel to fall through the hole so that he can then, allow the Muslims to overtake the Middle East and just basically calm down the whole situation, and that'll just eliminate the problem because Israel won't exist anymore, and the Palestinians and the Muslims will be extremely happy with this opportunity that they can eliminate this state that they've been trying to eliminate since 1948. Actually, if you go back in the history of time, this follows the Bible all the way back to the Philistines. And I know everybody wants to get crazy about how Palestine and Philistines don't match, but it's an exact match. Okay? So you need to understand this. And even though the elections for the Kurds is not going to happen, this still is not going to go over well with Erdogan, and Erdogan is going to invade anyway. Okay, so it didn't matter whether they had the elections. Erdogan's main goal is to go to help the Palestinians. He'll come back and deal with the Kurds. So you can see that Erdogan's not stopping. He's talking about an invasion. Any attempt to meddle in Syrian's administrative structure or so-called democratic maneuvers to establish a ground of legitimacy for a terrorist group is a justified motive for Turkey to conduct an operation based on this guy here. Okay, so you know it's coming. You know we're getting ready for this. This is all about Daniel 8 and the forming of those 10 nations of Muslims against Israel, as Erdogan's going to get ready to lead them into war. Okay, this will all happen within the next year. And so the Kurds are struggling to form a state. They've been pressured mainly by the U.S. to stop them because they're concerned with a Turkish invasion, which no one's talking about out here. Okay, so Biden's administration was the main opposition and the driver for the postponement of these elections. Why? What do they know? Why would they stop these elections if they weren't concerned about a geopolitical nightmare out here between Turkey and the Kurds, and how the Kurds would then be affected and driven to the east towards Erbil, as well as Erdogan coming down from Turkey into Syria, down into this conflict in the Middle East. I've been talking about it for months, years, that this was getting ready to happen. I've shown you on the paradigm and the charts that it's going to happen this month, working into July, because I keep saying Erdogan's going to be in July, down in Tyre, Lebanon. He'd get down in Gaza by October. And so this is going to break down as you're watching the markets basically crumble around us. So you've got a lot happening out here. Jay Powell has a Fed meeting on tomorrow. That's possibly going to really cause a lot of conflict in the markets, and so we should be watching all these different things. Erdogan also has some driving factors. He's in the process of eliminating a lot of the issues in his country with the Kurds. He just jailed their main leader, and so this is causing all kinds of problems over there. Erdogan's popularity has waned in the last election, and if you go into his into his inflation data, inflation is hitting around 75%. So if you think it's bad here, can you imagine 75.45% inflation as it hits in May, June? He's accelerating. They think it might be peaking, but it hasn't peaked yet, and this may really change as he goes into war against multiple different countries and things. So if you go on the Syrian live map, you click on the Kurds map, you can see nothing's changed. He's bombing multiple targets. He's softening up the areas. He wants to create this buffer zone in Iraq, which he has a formal agreement to do. And so he's bombing this area to eliminate the Kurdish threat on his uh, southern border, as well as he's attacking this area because he's getting ready to come down. And this is, look, this is logic. I'm sorry. And you can go into Alexander the Great's time and actually see this happening. And I want to bring this up so you guys can see it. Okay, so this is still part of Turkey. He's going to drive down through here into Lebanon, or at least around Syria into Lebanon to Tyre. Okay? He won't go against Damascus. That's not his main goal. His main goal is to get down into Palestine, into Gaza. So he's going to come down into here, into Lebanon, take out Tyre by the end of July, end up in Gaza by October. Like I said, the Egyptians capitulate. Once they capitulate, he then drives back to Tyre and then comes back against the Kurds and Iran by the end of this year. So it's extremely important you understand what he's getting ready to do. Now, there's a lot of confusion on when Pentecost happens. Okay, so realize that when you have Passover, you have to go to the first Sabbath and then count 7 Sabbaths, which would then take you to basically June 16th. Okay, that's how you get to Pentecost. Now, a lot of people count this wrong. It's called the counting of the Omer. It's a 50-day thing. A lot of them start right after the first day of Passover. But Passover can land in the middle of the week, and it has to end on a Sabbath. So that's why God indicated in Leviticus 23 that you have to go to the first Sabbath and then count 7 past that, and that last day, which is the 50th day, would be Pentecost, which would end up on a Sabbath, which is a Saturday. But look at the timing of this. You have Pentecost coming up on June 16th. Then you have a major Muslim holiday on June 17th. Now, I want to explain something to you right now. This is extremely important if you're fighting the other side, because they need to understand that the Bible was presented 1,000 years or more prior to the Quran's even existence. Okay, and that is extremely important that we understand this. So when you get into the question of what was first, was the Quran first or the Bible first? And was it the chicken or the egg that was developed first? This is the timeless question that we always seem to ask, okay? I can tell you right now, the Quran is look, I'm not trying to make anybody mad. I'm just showing you the history of the 2 books, okay? And you can go all over the place and find the history of these 2 books. The Quran did not come up until 610 to 632 CE, which is after the death of Jesus, okay? After the death of Jesus. So this book is a plagiarized evil manifestation from the Bible. It is a complete opposite of what the Bible's indicated. And this man, this Muhammad or whoever, went out into the desert, copied our book, plagiarized it into an evil book where you want to kill all the Gentiles and Jews and everything, because I guess God created a generation or groups of people that he hates so much that he wants them eliminated off of his creation or planet that he built. Now, I'm sorry, I don't follow a God like that. I believe that all nations, all peoples are people of God, that we shouldn't be out here killing each other in holy wars and on both sides. and that we should do what's proper, and to realize that we are all children of God. So when you go to the Bible side of this, and you go down into this article, and I know it's wiki, whatever, you can find this information anywhere. The Bible was written in 1200 BCE, okay? As you get into this article, okay? 1200 BCE, think about it. You're going through all of the history of the Jews all the way back to Exodus into the time that the Egyptians actually controlled the Jews and they were under servitude of them due to the Pharisees and things. This is a long time way back before Jesus even was born, 1200 years before he was born. So the Muslims come out and say that they have the book, but it's only been here since 610, possibly 610 AD, basically, after the birth of Christ. This is the first time, this is their teachings, okay, not mine. I'm just telling you what they're telling us. So when you go to the Quran, you have to question this. Well, if all the Muslims basically agree that this text did not come to place until 610 to 632 CE, which is after the death of Christ, you got to go back and look at the history of the Bible and look at how it's been presented for thousands and thousands of years, as well as we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, which basically reflect a lot of these different teachings and things in the Bible. And so I'm not trying to make anybody mad, but when you build a book, you know, if it was built 1200 BCE and you're going to 610 AD, basically, you're talking about a long period of time. You're talking about 1800 years gap between the Bible and this book. Okay, so when people bring this up to you that the Quran is the book, it's not the book. The Bible's the book. It was the first book, and we're talking about the Old Testament, and then yes, things were added to it. But the Torah, the Bible, the Torah, was presented during Moses' time. Way, way back, okay? So when they bring this topic up, you need to say, look, you're talking about a plagiarized book here. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make anybody mad. I'm just trying to tell you that there's no way you can justify saying that the Quran wasn't plagiarization off the Bible somehow. So it is what it is, guys. I'm just trying to point these things out to you. So when you get into this Muslim holiday, it talks about how this God commanded this man to kill his son. This reflecting directly out of the Bible, okay? Directly out of the Bible. So this story is told in Genesis 22, the very beginning of the book, and how Abraham was told to kill his son, and then he didn't because God told him not to, and then presented an animal so that he wouldn't have to sacrifice his son, in this case, for the sins of Israel and different things like that. So just realize that this is a plagiarized story from the Bible to the Quran. And I'm not trying to make any more than that. Look, the Bible came first, and then 1800 years later, we have a book called the Quran that comes out that basically mimics a lot of the Bible. And so you need to understand what you're up against here. So Muhammad is imitating the Bible in this case, and he's doing basically the same type of ritual that happened between Abraham and his son, and we have the same similar thing playing out almost 2,000 years later in the Quran. So you've got to question, did the egg come first or the chicken? I'm just saying, it's a really good question to get into. My other question here would be, though, because they're doing this sacrifice and this huge ceremony that's going to happen on the 17th, which is the day after Pentecost. We could see a breakout around this time, and so this would unite the Muslims to sacrifice themselves for their God. Um, and so it's extremely important that we understand not only the Jewish and the Christian side of this equation, but the Muslim side of this equation, which is going to play such a massive role in where we're heading. So let's go to the timeline real quick, and I'll show you where you're at on the timeline. Today is 1,564 days to the Feast of Trumpets of 2028, which is when I believe the fall feast will occur, when the Lord Jesus will come back and rapture his true believers. And so we need to watch those fall feasts of 2028. And so my countdown is from the first day of the fall feast of 28, which is the Feast of Trumpets of September 21st of 2028. If you count back to today, which is June 11th, you're at 1,564 days, which is sort of make you think, because you're at 1,564 days and you subtract 1,260 days from that, you're only about 304 days from a signing of a treaty with Antichrist on the ground, which is less than a year away. Okay, so you need to understand and put this into perspective. As you go down into this site, which is a free Wix site, go to endofdayssurvival.com, come down here, click on this 5th PDF. That brings you up my timeline. This has been updated just in the last month or so. I don't think I really need to update it unless we have a current event thing happening, because it has to play out in the time frame that I've explained, because we're working in a Shemitah cycle. So it's extremely important that we understand these things. Right now, you're in this section of time right now, and you have a lot coming up here. So hopefully you guys can read this. I indicated that Daniel 8 will start when Turkey invades. They're going to push the Kurds toward the east, but then they're going to go to Gaza. Now, I indicated this would start in May. I really wasn't sure. I've talked about Hezbollah would get us into June, July. This really is playing out within the time frame of May to July that I've been talking about. Turkey has been targeting the Kurds in their elections, and so this has delayed them in entering the battle, but now they don't have to deal with the Kurds, and so this basically puts them into a June timeline. Look, all I've said for some time is that they would be in Tyre by the end of July, because that's how Alexander's thing played out. So I'm just trying to explain to you that you're in this gap of time right now. And I've indicated that the Battle of Gaza would happen around September, October, as it indicated in the past. So I think it'll play out similar. Oh, I might be off a few days, a month or so. I'm sorry. I'm not this isn't an exact science here. I'm trying to go with history to show you when it could possibly happen and how it will be laid out and presented in front of you as we're moving forward in the next few months. And by the time you get to March of next year, guess what? Iran will fall, and Turkey will be back to Israel with 10 full nations attacking Israel, and we will see a red heifer sacrifice with destruction of 10 nations called Ezekiel 38 and 39. You've got Daniel 8 ending back here. Okay, end of the year. January at the latest, so they can get to March and Israel back around March. And then, like I say, once you get through this 6th seal event at the end of March, you start into an Antichrist phase and a signing of a treaty. And if you go down to the end of the chart, you're looking at the fall feast of 2028, September 21st. If you go from that date back 1,260 days, that takes you April 10th of 2025. We're heading there in the next less than a year. That's what I'm talking about. If you take the date that I've given you, the 1,564 days from the Feast of Trumpets of September 21st of 2028, and work back to today, you're at 1,564 days. So when you get to the signing of the treaty, 1,260 days, you've only got about 304 days before you get here. And so if you haven't been getting prepared, getting your oil in your lamp, then you need to do so. But I want you to understand that Turkey has not even started, and he's getting ready to come into this war regardless of what's going on with the Kurds. That's not his main objective. His main objective is to go help those Palestinian people down there, and how he's going to affect Israel tremendously, and then come back against the Kurds before the end of this year. So God bless everybody. Have a great day, and I will post some other things here in the next few days because we have a lot going on a number of different levels. So God bless. Get your oil in your lamp. Find the open door. Find the only way out of this nightmare, and that is to get right with the Lord Jesus. Realize that God's Son, true Son, is Jesus, and that once you realize that it's all about Jesus and the open door, you're probably going to get to the end of the story. But you got a long way to get there. And this is going to get radically ugly in the next few months. So you better be ready and get that oil in your lamp before this breaks. God bless and have a great night.